And there we go. That's so if you couldn't attend, you can always come back and attend, or you can tell your friends about it. We want everybody here, right? So hi there, folks. I'm Lisa Rice. I am with Soffel Partners. We are the lead in the Center of Excellence, which is all around strategic partnership and system alignment regarding registered apprenticeships. So I'm really thrilled to be here with you guys for this 30 minutes of excellence. I think you're going to enjoy our show. Do we want to call it a show today? And I will let you know that you are definitely not going to get everything answered today, because this is kind of a teaser session, I'm going to call it that, for a webinar that we will be holding on April 6th. And I will give you more information about that at the end. Just real quickly, the Center of Excellence, the whole purpose of our work is to try to help the whole workforce system. So from workforce boards to one-stop contractors to the frontline staff to OA, state agencies, voc rehab, you name it. If they're involved in any way, shape, or form in our entire workforce system, they are part of this whole center for us to try to get aligned around registered apprenticeship and to get us to all make this whole process go a lot simpler, right? We always want simple in our lives. That's what we're here to try to do. We're here to try to give you some technical assistance in different ways so that hopefully you can get yourselves involved in registered apprenticeship. And to me, no matter what kind of a position you have, I think that knowing about registered apprenticeship and knowing how people are doing this is very valuable for you to be able to use in your own everyday work as well. So I want to jump right away to our speakers. And so let me do quick little introductions here. So we have Leanne Cares, who is the Executive Director of Southeast Kansas Works. And she has, they actually, first of all, serve 17 counties. Okay. When you go past 2, I go, how the heck do you do this? But awesome for you, Leanne. 17 counties that she's covering in Southeast Kansas. She has tons of expertise with the local workforce development board, of course, but also she has human resources background. So some good little pieces that may come there. She's actually been with the board for 8 years now. And then Katie Givens, who is the Assistant Executive Director out of Southeast Kansas. Maybe they split up the counties, right? You know, half and half kind of thing. And she is definitely very experienced in WIOA, the American Job Center stuff that we do, even with youth case management, and since she's served in that kind of a role too. And she's been focused on workforce development for 12 years now. So we got some experts coming to us. And then Deb Furlong, who is our Workforce Development Program Manager for Maricopa County in Arizona. Deb just joined, well, not just joined, but recently joined the Maricopa County team after she'd been in San Diego, California for quite a long time doing workforce board roles there. In particular, a lot of stuff with the reentry population. So we might hear a few little tidbits coming out there as well. And right now in her current role with Maricopa, she's overseeing really the largest integrated WIOA apprenticeship program in the nation. Their numbers are pretty amazing. And Deb has experience in workforce development that is 20 years. She's up there with me with all the long years of doing this stuff. So the way we're gonna do this, you guys, today, is I've got a couple of questions that I'm gonna ask these folks and just kind of get them started. But as they're talking, if you are like, ooh, I wanna know something about this or that, please, please, please put it in the chat. Anything and everything is welcome in here. We don't care how basic you may think it is. Somebody else is also looking for that, okay? And if we can't answer it here, we will answer it in the April 6th webinar that we'll be doing with these lovely ladies. So I'm going to start out, I hope, with an easy one. And Leanne, I'm going to jump to you first with this one. Just Why did your board say, hey, we should get involved in registered apprenticeships?
Well, for us, it started with the state. The state actually developed a registered apprenticeship program, and we were given an opportunity to be part of a grant, the Registered Apprenticeship Expansion Grant, and that's how we got started. But the reason our board got involved was it allowed us to address some of their concerns regarding the declining numbers of individuals going into the trades, the significant impact it was having in our communities with the lack of tradespeople to perform necessary services, and also the economic impact that it had. And along with our declining population, our board felt that the RA could be a conduit to keeping our young adults in our local communities in which they grew up. And that's pretty much, oh, and another thing I would point out that our board also realized the average time that a student spends in school now is 7 years for a bachelor's and 4 years for an associate's degree. And the cost of going to post-secondary institution is not an option for a lot of our young adults and barrier populations. And another key fact to that is our upcoming generations don't want to be tied down in school debt. And so the registered apprenticeship model gives them the opportunity to obtain a credential and earn a self-sustaining wage while they're learning. So those are some of the key reasons that our board got involved.
Very cool. Thank you. And I'm going to follow up on something with you, because you said that your board did this so that they could kind of see, hey, are we going to be able to keep youth here? Have you had a long enough time to see if it is actually making that kind of impact for you?
I think it's had a small impact, but we are not as far along in registered apprenticeship as a state as we would like to be. And we hope to have some numbers to address that in a few years.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. When you're just starting with stuff, you can't always have all your numbers. All right. So then, Deb, I'm going to jump over to you with Maricopa. So why on earth did your board say, hey, we want to be involved in registered apprenticeship?
I think much like Leanne, it kind of starts at the state level, right? We had a ton of state support and belief in apprenticeship, and there's a strong force for that here in Arizona. And I think also starting in 1990, there's been a huge building boom here in Arizona. And so we were heavy in construction in this community. And so it really began to meet the needs. And so I would actually say it started with even our board of supervisors, who, as they were setting up the board, thought enough to ensure that there was some representation of apprenticeships in the workforce area that made up the board, to ensure that that voice was always heard at the board level. The second thing for us is the vision for our board is based on a hallmark of excellence, which is really business and job seekers drive all the work that we do. And I think when you talk about apprenticeships, that's the marriage, right? It drives our workforce, it supports our business. It's just a lot of shared goals. So it's really, why wouldn't our board supports registered apprenticeships and WIOA and the work that we're doing?
Well, okay, I can give you a quick why wouldn't. It's too much work. So what would you say to someone who said, it's too much work?
I would like to answer that, but can I wait till number 3? Because when I get to the next question, you're going to ask me, because if there's no other reason, there's a lot of benefits to perform.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay.
All right. So both of you have really great numbers around co-enrolling someone who's going into a registered apprenticeship in with WIOA. So they are WIOA customers. You have really high numbers compared to the rest of the state and states, and even down to the level of the workforce boards. So I'm asking both of you, and I'm going to ask maybe Deb to take it first, and then we'll come back over to Kansas and see which one of you, if it's Leanne or Katie that takes it. What have you done to make this happen, to get this co-enrollment be so successful? Are there a couple of components that you're like, do this and this?
Well, I'll start with this, is that we were intentional.
Ah.
We were really intentional to build relationships and partnerships. And it really started with getting an understanding, going and just talking to everybody and finding out, could we have a space there? What were their needs? And I think, I think you would ask, what are those things you think are key? And so I'd say our shared goals. When you talk about WIOA and you talk about registered apprenticeship, our goals are just so similar. They align so nicely together. So it was finding all the areas that we could connect, and that made sense. And I think the other piece that I believe builds the success is a mutual respect for each other's role and what piece we play in that, and honoring that in the process, because there's certainly a dance in a relationship to make this work and make sure all the timing works together and supporting everyone, and, you know, a lot of hands in the pot. And so, but I think it's that mutual respect and always coming back to that place that it's been really some of the keys to our success.
Yes, I'm totally in agreement with you. Okay, Leanne or Katie, who wants to take this one?
I'm going to let Katie take this one.
Okay, cool.
So, you know, I 100% agree with what Deb said on building the relationships. I think that that's just vital with our employer partners in this and our sponsors. It's just tremendous. You know, additionally to that, I think that, you know, the idea and us developing and getting the word and outreach out on apprenticeship, and that, you know, any type of field is apprenticeable. And really developing that through our business service team and making that, and like Deb said, very intentional on how we go out and market and talk about RA with our employer customers, and really developing some of those new ones that maybe we haven't thought about before. You know, it's just really been crucial to our success with that. You know, working with in tandem with the employer customer and in this situation, I think has really helped drive our success with RA in our local area. But it's also taking a look internally, I'd say, to add into that. And how can we make things with, you know, the idea is, you know, we do have bureaucratic processes at time, but how can we streamline these, make them as least duplicative as we can, and front facing to the employer and to the job seeker or potential apprentice, to make it very seamless and not just to do something because we do it or it's the old way. Sometimes I think as workforce boards, we have that that mentality of, oh, well, we've always done it this way. But if you go back to the law, we have tons of flexibility. We get in our own way sometimes. So breaking those things down and really saying, how do we make this as easy as possible for the customers, whoever that customer might be?
Oh, I love that you said we get in our own way, because we oftentimes do in this workforce world. We get in our own way. We think there's always a no, but there's usually a yes, or it just wasn't addressed, which in my world is a yes. So if you didn't tell me no, we can find a way to go forward. So I love that you said that. Okay, so then my next question that I have for you guys is, you know, and this is back to kind of this performance measure stuff, because for boards, that's our bread and butter, right? So have you seen what you're doing with Registered Apprenticeship actually start to help you with your performance measures? And then also kind of the secondary, what about, has it helped you with your employer relationships? So who wants to take this one first? I'll leave it as a toss up for you guys.
I'll take it. And Katie, you can tag team in if you want, but
Perfect.
you know, registered apprenticeship is actually one of the easiest investments that you can make to hit all the performance measures. And it has significantly contributed to positive outcomes across our local area. So that's one of the key things. And then also, as far as improving relationships, that has been amazing. We've developed a lot of new relationships. We've built up some relationships that we've had in the past and been able to give them opportunities. And it's sustainable. We can do, you know, the workforce system and formula funding, business services, the one-stop support, it all ties in together and helps our performance overall.
Awesome. Katie?
Just adding on to that, you know, when you think about the employer relationship and how this started in Kansas, was this special grant that we received from USDOL. And that came, you know, when you're doing outreach to businesses about that, you have, a nice price tag to some of that they could help with the RTI. And so we had to start to think about sustainability. And so, you know, as those grant funds deplete, if you can't get that back up there, so really braiding the dollars, like Leanne said, it gives a more total package to that employer, especially when, you know, grant funds aren't there. So it's great when we get those grants, but, you know, our foundation is the formula funds and how we use those creatively to create a package for the employer and the job seeker.
So when you're creating those packages, is that the full gamut? Like it's on the job learning dollars they could do, and come at worker training, supportive services for the candidate as long as they're eligible, of course. So it's the full gamut. It's not like just tied to, well, all we can do is something for the candidate or all we can do is something for the business then.
Yes, it is that full gamut and that wraparound for that person. And so we are looking individually, and that comes back into that relationship with the employer. So if we're getting these folks, you know, we're creating that pipeline, right, of folks. So, you know, when you think of the trades, you know, if it's something that's over a year in RA, you know, we're building that pipeline up, but we have that relationship with them that they're telling us in advance, hey, this is what we need, you know, before we go into this, or this customer, we think they could be great. They're going to need transportation assistance until they get that first paycheck. So really just wrapping those services around as they're moving forward through the training program.
Awesome. Very awesome. Deb.
Well, this is one of my favorite things, right? You know, that it is a lot of work, but you know, what's the return on investment for your boards? And, you know, a couple of things, you know, just to get down to the more granular level of that is the apprenticeships and vets are a really strong connection. It's a similar learning model. We often see higher numbers of vets. So we love that performance metric for us being higher there. Certainly, I think you mentioned I have a soft spot and a love for working with formerly incarcerated or individuals with justice involvement, and you see a higher percentage in that as well. So it's meeting a need for folks that we're interested in working with. And then think about it, right? Like retention, when I was talking about those shared goals, I think about apprenticeship and WIOA, right? So we've got the measurable skills gain, we've got the retention, I've got the employment, I'm seeing the wage increase over time. So my median wage is impacted. It just hits like every single.
You got employed, second and fourth quarter employed, right?
My
you got,
retention is like, check, like
credential.
check.
It's like, yeah.
So I've got a lot of work on this front end, right, to make the system works. And I love what Katie said. Sometimes you just get in our, as you were saying too, Lisa, we get in our own way sometimes. And it's thinking outside the box and creatively, or saying, okay, here's the box and how do we quickly jump through it, and we'll do it and we'll figure it out and make it as painless for everyone as possible. So the performance metrics alone is a reason. And there's certainly some stuff on the back end you got to watch when you're looking at recruitment, but overall it's a huge win. And all those things mean for us, right? Lower unemployment rates, our employers are happy, they're getting their needs met. And that retention piece, which is the piece I love to talk about with our employers. And one of this, a huge benefit, I think, not only for the employee, but and the apprentice, but that employer retention, especially right now in our community, it's such a bigger conversation, and one that I think we can build. And as we continue to open our minds and opportunities to expand apprenticeships outside of the traditional, and that's, you know, I'm really hoping the new wave and where we'll get more people to understand the value of this is, you know, it's really strong in certain industries. But, you know, as we've all been talking, this is everywhere. This could really cross over everywhere. So how do we make this bigger, better, and scale it up? And I know DOL is working on that. Anyway, that's what I would say. There's a lot of awesome reasons to do it performance-wise.
Cool. I completely agree with you guys. All right. So audience members, this is our time. Do you have a question for the folks who are here with us today, our panelists today? Anything goes. I mean, you can ask them a question about, well, how did you start talking to the business? Anything goes. If you want to come off of your mic, you can unmute yourself and just ask, or you can always type it into the chat. And so I'll give you a second if you want to. Come on. And if not, I'll ask more. Oh, I see Odie, you got your hand up. You're so polite. I love that.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for coordinating this session. It's been very informative. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia, and I would say that my question is really, how do we gain the employer partner piece for registered apprenticeships? That has been one of the most challenging things, and there's so many value incentives for employers to participate, WIOA specifically, and other tax incentives. So like, it's hard to get past the gatekeepers, I would say. So how do we gain that relationship? And not to prolong my question, but would it be better to approach it as a community, like establishing an Atlanta tech Technology Workforce Collaboration Board, and all the training providers and intermediaries like come together as a coalition and say, this is what we need from employers in this particular city or this region. Because I really think we need to come together and have a point of solidarity. I would even say across the nation, to say we have to transition from being one-dimensional in our training efforts to pair that with on-the-job training, because that's what employers are looking for. So would love to gain the panel's thoughts on that. Thank you.
That's a great question. And actually, I'm just going to let you guys know, we actually have another one that said, how do you start talking to the businesses? Because they're not doing apprenticeships yet. So how do you even have that beginning conversation? So Leanne, did you want to grab that first?
Well, yes. We have our business service teams and they work with our employers and, they develop those relationships. So that gives them an opportunity to go in and discuss, different other grant opportunities that present themselves. But also customer feedback, and we'll do some sessions where we invite a lot of different, areas to come in. And then that customer success where an employer is willing to get up and talk about how it was successful for them and, what they got out of it. But also we work to do whatever we can to make the paperwork a lot less for them. We will bend over backwards and we will do every piece of paperwork that we can to make it easy for them. And that has been a great success for us too, because a lot of employers are like, well, I don't want to hassle with the paperwork. I don't want to, get that intense. And so we'll do that legwork for them and make it as easy as possible. And Katie, you can piggyback off that if you want.
No, I mean, I would agree with what you're saying that, when I think about the power of other employers, like Leanne was saying, I think that's critical, telling the story of where their success has been. One thing that we found with a couple of our employers too, is that they have a lot of the training built in, and the things that would relate to RTI is already there. So it's kind of getting in with them and showing them how we can translate some of those things and making it easier. So there is a component of really digging in, but I do like the idea of coming together and having, informational sessions and talking about educating the community more about registered apprenticeship. And we've seen some success with that as well.
That's cool. Deb, did you want to add anything to this? How did you start those conversations?
I think what Leanne and Katie talked about is pretty, spot on. Is our business services team understanding, having the language and the tools to go out to get those doors to be opened. And I think something Katie said is that they have these systems already set in place, right? It's really, and that's kind of the key of those business service reps. They understand that business, they understand the language, and then start to use those terms in our terms and connect them for folks. And so I think that's a big piece of what we've done, along with the tools that we have to support the folks, like training dollars and support service, and show that win for them. I do think I actually like what Odie's talking about, and some intentionality around groups. I think we've seen some movement in that, and I'm actually really excited. Our board is stepping into that right now. Actually, right before this meeting, I got an invite to go meet one of our new in-demand folks that's going to help really drive industry and business together to understand what that need is. And, sometimes we want to step in a space that's not always ours, I think, too. And when we let them have that space and take ownership and help facilitate it and understand that words and then connect the dots in the world that we know, that I think that can become our benefit. So I believe our board is moving in this way of bigger and also stepping outside of industry. And then Lisa, some of the grant opportunities that you have and some of the other folks around the nation that are coming to us that are allowing these smaller folks. I mean, apprenticeship sounds so big, and we talk about that campaign to go out and talk to people too, that it's not this huge thing, and people just don't even know what it is really. And I think as we have opportunities like what you guys are doing with IT and some other folks around doing around IT, to step in at a smaller space without this, it's a big thing. It's a smaller, we've done the paperwork, we've done this, kind of how Katie and Leanne are helping folks out. I think that'll bring more people to the table. As Odie said, this has got to be a national movement, and we're seeing that. We're seeing that.
I'm going to add to that. It is going to be a national movement. It's whether or not you're an early joiner or a late joiner on this train, because look at how much money the administration is putting into apprenticeship. There's grants, there's intermediaries, there's state grants, I mean, it's all over the place for apprenticeship. That is not going to stop anytime soon. And I love that you guys are talking about how we can really get in with our employers and let them see, look, you already have a lot of the training here. So it's not quite as daunting to them. Oh my, we have got a few more questions here. I don't know that well, I know we're not going to get to them all, but these are going to be answered, I swear to you, in the April 6th session. So I'm going to pick one that actually has been put out here that is kind of one of those unique little niche-y kind of questions, but it's really good. So Ricky has let us know that the number one concern for employers is their concern over worksite approval by Department of Labor and Industry. So have you guys had to address that with them, how to get through that worksite approval? Go ahead.
Our state has a process that we go through, and they do the approval piece, but they have a state council that approves the apprenticeships. And as far as work sites, that's left up to the local area. It's just they approve the apprenticeship itself.
Okay. Deb, have you experienced anything along those lines?
I really haven't. And honestly, if anybody had any concern, our state rep, Willie Higgins, is just a huge advocate and support for folks. And honestly, I would get Willie, and Willie would calm whatever problem was going on. I'm confident of that. So, but that's a really great question. And I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
So thanks for the question. And maybe in our next session, I might be able to address that if I've heard a little more.
And we will actually be having Willie on with us on April 6th. So he can probably answer some of that a little bit more in depth too, from his perspective. One of the ways that I would suggest that you get around it, you don't always have to be pushing for the business to become the sponsor themselves. You have tons of intermediaries out here right now who have programs ready to go. Your local community college probably has programs ready to go that they're already done. So it's not necessarily about the employer having to be the sponsor. It's about connecting the employer to the right program for their needs. So that helps them get over that work site issue when they're doing that. Pretty much helps them get over the work site issue. So that helps. Let's see, we've got 3 minutes left. Oh my gosh, I just love all of these questions that you guys have put in here. So please just know that we are going to make sure we answer all of these. If you have more too, you can always send them in to NADUP, or you can send them to myself. Mine is lisa.rice@soflpartners.com. Maybe I could ask Jackie to throw that into the chat for everybody, my email address, so that you guys can always email me as well. And then the next thing that I want to tell you with our 2 minutes that we have left, our number one, April 6th, you can go to the NADUP website and you can go ahead and register and get yourself on that. Please tell others about it as well, because it's a short notice and we realize that, but we want as many people on as possible because we will definitely expand upon all of this. The second thing that I wanted to let you know is that the Center of Excellence is probably coming to a state near you. Our first state that we're going to is California. So, well, kind of, sort of. We're also going to Missouri, but it's a quiet launch with Missouri, where at their annual conference in April that we'll be talking about some things. So if you're from Missouri, you'll see us there. If you're from California, at the WorkCon conference, they have dedicated a pre-con session to what the Center of Excellence is doing. So if you are in California, or you just happen to go to that conference, because it's a hot conference, I am telling you, okay, then just plan to be at the pre-con as well and do some work with all of this apprenticeship stuff as well. All right, Miss Melissa, did I miss anything that we need to talk about?
I don't think so. I think you covered everything. Thank you so much. Leanne is very special to me. She's on the Not Up board, so I appreciate
Yes.
her time in joining us. And just a reminder to everybody that we will do a deep dive into all of these points and all of the questions that we were able to get to and those that we weren't able to get to on April 6th.
Right.
So we'll all go back to our research and make sure that we have information on all those things.
That's right. And I thank Leanne, Katie, and Deb for joining us too. Please, please come and join us on April 6th. Amanda just popped in the link into the chat that you can go to be able to register for that. Remember, all of these things are free. We are bringing them to you. If you have additional topics you want us to do, you can also throw those in the chat or send them to us. We are constantly just trying to bring this stuff to you. So round of applause, yay, for our speakers that we've had today. Thank you, ladies, so much. We get to hear more from them on the 6th. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.